Only a few people know the story, but I shit myself so hard. So I was like, you know what? I went into the comp. Everyone was knocking everyone out. It was freaking freaky. I remember shitting myself like shitting bricks. These other guys, which was my next opponents, and they got knocked out. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm going to verse him.
Call me Bucky, lucky that I'm innocent. If I didn't have no morals, I'd be menacing.
Welcome everyone to Soul Therapy. Today I have a very special guest, 5 times 1FC world champion, Martin Nguyen. Not only is he accomplished in his craft, you know, it's not even a sport, right? It's a craft. Watching him kind of perform, watching him train for it, but also he's a great guy. He's one of my close friends and a family man, and there were just so many accomplishments for me to say. But you know, welcome him to the channel.
Thank you for having me, guys. That was a great introduction. First of all, 5-time world champion, yes, 2 division world champion, but yes, thank you for having me here at the warehouse, man, on the show.
No, thanks for coming. I was really excited for this one. To get started, I want to get to know you and really to start at the beginning. What was it like growing up? What was it like being a young Vietnamese Australian, you know, dual identities, and then how did that get you into MMA?
Growing up, typical Vietnamese family, everyone's close, uncles and aunties, we always had gatherings every day, not every weekend, it was just every day. And how I remember it was, you know, I was close to my brothers and sisters, and you know, we were the cleaner for my dad. So when he brought all the uncles and aunties and that over, and they used to sit down on the ground, newspaper out, all the food would come out, everyone would be drinking.
The beer bottles, right?
The beer bottles, empty beer bottles. You know, I had to have the cartons after when everyone had left, we'd pack them all away, straight into the bin, help my mom clean up. You know, my dad would go to work as much as he could, and he'd come home, and then it was just the gathering. And that happened every single day. So we would come home from school, just come back from school. These Asians are ruthless, man. They start at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, you know, 10 o'clock in the morning. Wherever it goes, man, wherever it gets them, it's just the vibe. That was the vibe. And the karaoke came out Friday night, and yeah, the neighbors down the street, you can hear them singing. Terrible, but you know, that was their vibe.
Yeah, and do you think that's why you're so family orientated? Is that, you know, a big part of the reason? Or?
I think the main thing that makes me more family orientated is I know the struggle that my parents even went through, even to provide for, you know, there was 4 of us. Yeah, it's not easy raising 1 kid, let alone 4. But that's the choice that my parents made, and they provided as much as they could for us. They went and worked whenever they could, and you know, food was always provided on the table. We didn't have much when it came to like toys, sneakers, clothes on our back. I always had to wear my brother's hand-me-downs. So when my brother didn't fit into like his school clothes, that was my clothes next year. And even though they were still big on me, because he was a bit of a bigger guy back then, yeah, it was just one of those things, you just tuck it in and, you know, at least the top half's showing and you're good.
I think for you, the way I think about it is that you have really core values, right? I'm just watching you on your socials, you know, talking to you as a mate. There's a lot of core values there. Do you think they stemmed when you were younger, like growing up like that, or was it more as you developed and you got older?
I think it developed more when I got older, and I realized the time we have, yeah, it's not long at all, man. It's just you can't take every day for granted. You just take it as it comes, and obviously try to be the best person you can be. As I got older, I got more wiser, and I had to kind of develop that fast, because I found out my wife and I at the time, I was 19, she was 23. We found out we're having my son. So as a 19-year-old, finding out that you're going to be a father, it's a bit shocking, you know. Yeah. Like my parents were very, very supportive at the time. They found out they were having a grandkid. I was like, mad, that's it, done. For me, I was like, but I was at the park yesterday drinking with my friends, and now I have to step up and provide for someone that I can't even provide for myself. You know, that kind of like, I had that kind of mentality at the time. Yeah. My wife is older, and she's a bit more wiser, and she's obviously, she had her struggles coming up, and she's much more responsible, and she made me step up to the man I am now. Like there's, even to this day, she corrects me. There's some days where, you know, you're gonna have more bad days than good, but you know, having a spouse next to you that, you know, kind of levels everything out helps a lot, definitely.
Yeah, well, so much to unpack there. You know, when you're 19, becoming a father.
Dude,
like
19, like, as I said to you, man, we're probably drinking JD and Coke and some type of bubbly, I don't know, at the park, and we used to just hang out, just be menaces. Yeah. At 19, we're still menaces, you know, we're still young, we're still kids. My wife was like, probably never allowed out of the house, and she was like, when she met me, everything, you know, went along, and when she said to me, we're gonna have a baby, and in my head I was like, I was shocked, but I wasn't gonna kill the baby. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, let's do it. Like, let's do it. And then from when my son came out, it was literally like a year and a half later. She told me I'm pregnant again, and that was my daughter. And I was like, oh man, okay, this was a mistake, but let's go with the flow.
Yeah.
And then it kind of made me like step up a lot. Like,
What do you think changed? Other than that mentality of now I got to provide for mini Martins, right? Like what changed?
what changed is, like, as I said to you, man, I wasn't able to provide for myself. I was like, how am I gonna look after another kid when I relied so much on my brother to, my brother used to work, and he used to come home and he used to give me $5 for the school lunch money, and I was like, I thought it was the best thing ever. And when my brother used to come home with brand new clothes, I was like, oh, can I wear that shirt out with the boys tonight? We're going to this party. I want to look good. So my brother would be like, oh, here, because he used to always be at work, and then he'd come home and he would just like the game and just chill out. So I was like, can I borrow this? Can I borrow that? And I'd never had anything for myself. And then when my wife came along and I had to borrow half my brother's clothes to try to impress my wife, yeah, man, it was just...
It worked, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. It was like, I was definitely grateful for just those times, because, my parents were out majority of the time, and my brother like kind of provided for me because he worked in a bakery, and he was just like, here's $5, okay, here's... And I'd always have like food for lunch, and I would always have like the perfect group of guys around me to not get me in trouble, but obviously have an amazing time as well. So before we found out that we were gonna have a baby, my wife and I, I just finished high school. I was 17 at the time, just finished high school. And my dad flew my brother, my sister, my older sister, and me over to Vietnam for 3 months.
Yep.
And at the time, my dad knew that I had a girlfriend, so my dad bought my wife a ticket over as well. But she only came because she was working at the time. The last 2 weeks, my wife came over. She experienced like the village life. But we stayed there for 3 months, and then I came back and I started an apprenticeship in automotive industry. So I was a light vehicle mechanic. I'm a qualified mechanic. I've been obviously 4 years in apprenticeship. So that's those 4 years, and then having to support 2 kids on an apprenticeship wage. It doesn't work out very well. My wife worked weekends. She didn't ever have any time to work during the week because it was all about the kids. So the support system, we lived in a granny flat in the back of my parents' house. I didn't have to pay rent, so obviously that's a plus side of living at home. But yeah, my dad built the granny flat, went out of his way, built it, and my wife and I moved in there. We had my son and my daughter at the time, and it was chaotic. I couldn't remember. It was very, very chaotic. And it was only a 1 bedroom. We had a living room and a bathroom.
So then how did you start to think about taking the risk to become a professional fighter? Like that, that would be the last thing on my mind, right?
100%.
If I was going through that, I'd be like, man, I just want to pay the bills. I just want a quiet life.
100%.
How did you do that? Like
the stress was real. After we had got married, probably 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, we were living in my parents' house. At that time, I was like, it was all about rugby league. I had to quit rugby league because I kept dislocating my shoulder. And I was like, I can't dislocate my shoulder because I couldn't even go to work. So I was like on the verge of losing my job as an apprentice because I couldn't work because my shoulder kept popping out from rugby league. So I had to give up rugby league. I went into a year of therapy, just gym work, just going to the gym. I went with my brother's friend at the time. We played rugby league together, and then we'd go to the gym. And then now I stopped rugby league. After he'd play, we'd just go to the gym. And it was like a year of rehab. And then I was still just super fat. And I remember I was drinking at my house with my friend across the road, and he had already started jiu-jitsu. He's already a taekwondo black belt, and he was like my age, and he was just doing martial arts his whole life. But then he's like, oh, they're starting jiu-jitsu at the gym where I train. I was like, you know what, we're watching the UFC. It was like BJ Penn versus George St. Pierre at the time, and I was like, oh man, this is very interesting. Like, there were 2 guys fighting, and I was like, the competitiveness.
what year would have that been?
I swear I would have been 21, so it would have been roughly around 2010.
That's when UFC was starting to pick up, right?
Around 2010, 2011-ish, around there.
Because it was still a niche sport. I remember watching a couple of friends in high school. Back like 2010, like not many people would have known about UFC. Like it was still very niche.
But it was definitely starting off, and it was definitely like, I was like, wow, these guys are actually like fighting. This is pretty cool. Let's learn jiu-jitsu first. So we started off doing jiu-jitsu, and I did that for on and off for about a year, and I was doing weights at the same time. And my wife came to me and she goes, you're paying for 2 memberships. You go into the gym, to lift weights.
That's her being responsible again.
Yeah, 100%. She put me like a straight ultimatum, and I hated it. I hated life when she put it out to me. She goes, "You're paying for the gym, and you're paying for your jiu-jitsu training, which is not cheap at all. You know, every dollar counts. You have to cancel one of them." And at the time, I was like, I don't want to cancel any of them. I love doing both of them because I'm not doing rugby league. This is my sanity, you know. Obviously,
Especially having to go through what you were going through, like, having to grow up, like you needed something to.
Bro, I love to stay active. And after rugby league, I was playing since 8 years old, and I finished at around 18, and I was like, I couldn't like let it go because it was just what I breathed and lived and played, you know. And I only did jiu-jitsu to lose weight, and that was the main thing. Like that was it. And I kind of had like a good wrestling background because of the rugby league. So I was like, you know what, it married out well. I don't really have to learn takedowns that much because I can just tackle someone to the ground, and that's what was a takedown. So I was like, you know, I'm kind of somewhat ahead of the beginners that I started off with. Just like any competitiveness in anyone or anything that you start off in, you do it and you're not just doing it just to stay stalemate. You want to kind of progress to the next level and try yourself at next level, and then try and then see what's going on, and you're constantly upgrading, right? And so yeah, I started jiu-jitsu on and off for a year, and then I was like, you know what, I'll jump in a jiu-jitsu comp. Like just a tournament they have the hold on weekends or whatever. So I was like, I'll compete in that, and I came third. I remember competing, my wife was there with me, and I blame her for this too. I came third. The only reason why I came third, and I tapped out so fast. You don't see me tap out fast at all, but the guy, I took the guy down or whatever, and he reversed me, and then he had me on top. And all he had was just his forearm just like along my throat, and he was trying to pass guard. And I tapped straight away, and I ran off the mats, and I threw up. Only because she gave me a liter bottle of Gatorade before my match, and I sculled the whole thing, just like I was like, I've never seen freaking Gatorade in my life. I just drank the whole thing, and the moment I finished the last drop, they called my name out to go grapple, and dude, I swear, I went for it to take that.
Just bloated, right? Like,
oh, dude, I was so bloated. And the moment I hit it was like when you're drunk, right? When you're drunk and you lie down and you want to throw up straight away because you lie down. Like everything started to come up.
She just threw up on him, like just.
So I tapped out to save the embarrassment of throwing up on the main fighting mats.
Yeah.
And I ran off the mats and threw up. And at that day, I was like, you know what? I can't let I could have won that. I could have won that. I was tapping it. I had like 4 arm bars that day, and I was like mad. Felt like I could have won that. But then I went to go sign into another jiu-jitsu comp.
Yeah.
And at the time, MMA was started to boom up. There was fighters out of the gym, and I was like, you know what? One day I want to train with those guys. I was never training with them. I was never doing any Muay Thai classes. All it was I came in at 6:30 and I left at 7:30, and that was jiu-jitsu classes. That was it. Nothing else with the gym. And every single time I come in, I see the guys working out so hard. And then when I'm done my jiu-jitsu class, they're still going. So I was like, you know, one day I want to train with those guys, and they were the fighters at the time.
Yeah.
And then after that competition, I said, I want to sign up for the Muay Thai classes as well. How much was it? So my wife at the time made me stop doing the weight sales, the gym membership, and I was only paying for jiu-jitsu. But then that weights money, instead of saving it, I kind of signed up for Muay Thai, and then that kind of added on the extra, and I was like, now I'm doing Muay Thai.
How did you break it to her?
I didn't. I was just like, I just went with the flow, and then she would have obviously seen the bills and everything come out.
The price went up for my jiu-jitsu
The price went up.
Yeah.
It was one of those ones. But then when I started, and then like the coach at the time was like, why do you want to start Muay Thai? And like every other freshman that starts off, I just said to him, I just want to fight. And so I started Muay Thai, and it was the worst. I had my first session, it was the worst session of my life.
Why?
I left. I remember so fat. His name was Tonga. In my first Muay Thai training session, he kicked the shit out of my leg, honestly, about 5-6 times in the same spot. I walked out of that class limping. It was so bad, so bad.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm never doing this again. Obviously, I came back and I done it. I just kept avoiding him. He was like the big fob guy that I had to spar with.
He's like the boss at the end, right?
Oh,
You're like,
dude,
I don't want to fight him until I'm ready.
He literally made me feel hell just from the leg kicks, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm done. From that, left, came back. I said to my wife after signing up for Muay Thai, there was an MMA local comp, just like a tournament comp, MMA. My wife at me says, you're not fighting. You're just training, as you said, to lose weight. You're not fighting at all. If she even left me with an ultimatum, if you fight, I'm gonna leave you. I hate fighting. And to this day, she still hates fighting.
Yeah.
Right, she goes, if you're gonna fight, I'm not gonna be with you. I don't like that type of stuff. I don't like the violence and all that. So I was in my head, I was like, you know what? I signed up for the MMA comp already. I already paid the fee. I'm not gonna break it to her and say, yeah, I'm fighting.
Yeah.
So she thought I was doing a jiu-jitsu comp.
Yeah.
So because I said to her I'm doing a jiu-jitsu comp, I actually lied to my wife, and I went and I done the MMA fight. It was 4 fights that day. My first fight, thankfully, was a bye. And I was like, all right, I'm through to the second round, and I had 3 fights after that. All 3 fights I won, and I won the tournament.
Wow. First tournament.
My first ever MMA tournament. I won it because of my jiu-jitsu. I didn't stand and strike with anyone because I was too scared.
Which is interesting, right? Because now you're known as like one of the best strikers.
Strikers, yeah. But my bread and butter is jiu-jitsu.
Okay,
so I was like, you know what? I went into the comp. Everyone was knocking everyone out. It was freaking freaky. I remember shitting myself like shit bricks. I just seen like a group of like Lebanese boys at the time that were doing Muay Thai. They were knocking people out, and then they came to these other guys, which was my next opponents, and they got knocked out. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm gonna verse him. And mind you, I did that, I fought that tournament at 84 kilos.
So heavy.
I was like 5'6", 5'7" at the time, 84 kilos. So everyone was bigger.
So how long from the first jiu-jitsu class to that?
It was roughly about a year and a half since the jiu-jitsu class to the actual
That's still
fight.
pretty fresh. Like,
yeah, 100%,
wow.
100%. And I was like, you know what? After winning that comp, I came home with a trophy and I showed my wife, and she goes, oh, I'm like, babe, I won. And she goes, oh, you won? I was like, yeah, but it wasn't jiu-jitsu, it was MMA. Look at it. And she goes, no, you didn't, like that. Like, sure, because she said to her that it was gonna be jiu-jitsu.
Oh, no.
And she goes that you're not allowed to fight. So I said, I won. And look, I'm not scratched, I'm not broken, I'm not bruised. Everything is fine. All I did was...
You would have been more scared to face her.
Exactly. I actually was. I actually was. I walked in, I said, look, I just went in there and I submitted everyone. I didn't stand and strike with anyone. I just went in there, took him down, and I submitted everyone. And I won my comp. And like 3 months later, they had another comp. I'm like, you want to come and watch me? Because I'm going to jump in that comp. And she goes, last one. I'm like, okay, last one. And she came to that on that day, and I swear, only a few people know the story, but I shit myself so hard because I actually went down in division.
Yeah.
And down in division, there was this darker guy, and he was literally, he had 4 fights. He knocked out every single one, like complete clean knockout. There was like ambulance coming, stretchering people out.
Okay, yeah.
20 seconds every fight. 20 seconds, 20 seconds, 20 seconds, and he made it to the finals.
Wow.
And here's me, I'm grappling my head off, I'm fighting my head off, I'm submitting people. I got to the finals, and then I'm like, who am I fighting for the finals? Like, oh, you're fighting Maurice. I look up and I was like, what's up? I'm like, man, it's that dark guy. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get knocked out. My wife was like, oh, don't worry about it, just don't fight, just because they wanted us to come back at 6 o'clock at night. Mind you, it was like 11 o'clock in the morning when I competed. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to come back at night. Just have the finals now. And then I asked him, do you want to do the finals now or come back at 6? So he goes, oh, I'll just do it now. Like, it's not like he was exhausted or anything. He knocked out 4 people within 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I was like, bricks already. So I versed him. Straight away, immediately, I took this guy down. Without a doubt, like
Before he could strike you, yeah.
Bro, I didn't even say hello or shake his hand or anything. They said fight, I just went straight away, straight for a takedown. I didn't want no bar of getting knocked out and getting embarrassed in front of my wife and all my teammates. I took him down, and then I had him in a very tight armbar, and it popped about 4 or 5 times. I thought his arm was like completely shredded.
Yeah, wow.
And he ended up getting past the first round, and it was in the second round, and then he took me down. And I was like, oh shit, I'm getting taken down now. And then I kind of reversed that, and then I put an arm bar on him on that same arm, and he immediately tapped. And in my head, I was like, oh my God, I just like overcame my fear. I fought the strongest guy, the scariest guy in the whole day that I fought, and then I just beat him. Yeah. So then all my coaches like, oh wow, that was a great fight, and wow, you're actually like getting better and better and all that. And I said, okay, now it's time to step into the cage. And my wife was like, because she seen I had no bumps and bruises on me, and I wasn't injured at the time. I was like, okay, I'm gonna step into the cage now. And then the following year, because I was in October, the following year in March, I had my first fight.
Wow, it happened so quickly.
Because I was so determined. It was just a sport that I was like, just trained every day and just seeing the same amount of guys and just worked hard and grinded hard and worked towards a higher belt and whatever.
Did you feel like it was linear for you? So did you feel like, oh, you know, this and then this and then this, or was it like it kind of was just quick?
No, yeah, it was just like just one step after other. 1 week I'm learning how to break someone's foot off and like via footlock, and then another week I'm like focusing on rear nakeds, and it was just constant upgrading. And in the time I was like trying to raise my family, try to go to work, and straight after work, I'll come straight to the gym. So half the time I was like one of those smelly guys. I used to smell like oil and hand cleaner and everything like that, and I used to jump straight on the mats.
Yeah.
And I was like one of those guys. It was just constant driving from one place to another and back home. And I never used to get home up until like 8 o'clock, 8:30. I'd go to work in the morning, 6 o'clock, and I won't get home till 8 o'clock.
So was it at that moment that you were like, actually, I can make a career out of this, or was it still, let's see what's the next level here?
Yeah, it was just, that's how it is. Yeah,
Okay.
One level, next level, one fight, 4 fights, undefeated. And then I won my first Australian title, and I was like, I'm an Australian champ. I was 66 kilos. I'm fighting at, mind you, I started off at 86. 86. I had my first fights at 84. Now I'm fighting, I'm cutting actual weight. I fought 66 as my professional fight, and I won the title. So I was like, and at that night when I won the title, I didn't know at the time, but I got a contract for one championship.
Wow, okay.
And I was like, this was 2013, I was like, I won the title. Then they offered me to fight on the world stage, international. And I was like, hell yeah, I want to do it. Like, it was just another step. I was like, yeah, okay, if that's the next step, I want to do it.
Yeah.
If they want to give me a better fight, I want to do that too. Even if I get like knocked out or whatever, I want to try. I just want to keep going and keep climbing and keep getting better until I know where I went wrong and all that stuff.
So it wasn't like a grand plan. Yeah, it's interesting hearing your approach that, to get signed to 1FC, and that was just another linear step to
100%, man. And when I signed with them, I was like Australian champ. I can't remember my age. It was like 2013 for sure. I know I got the contract 2013. I had my first fight in 2014.
How did you feel in that first fight? What were you nervous?
Dude,
were you scared? Were you?
I don't think I was as scared as like my first fight. I was just like, I don't know anything about the guy. I was fighting a guy on 3 weeks notice.
Yeah.
He was 5-0 from the Philippines. He had 2 knockouts and 3 submissions. Try to look him up on YouTube, try to watch any of his previous fights, cannot find anything of it. And I was like, who am I fighting? A jiu-jitsu guy or a striker or what is he? He's like killing everyone. I was like, what the hell is going on? I don't know anything about this guy. And so, I just went over there. I had me, my wife, and my coach at the time. We all went over there, and I see him, and I was like, man, this guy looks like he's came from a rough neighborhood. He looks like he's rough, like he's tough.
Especially third world
5-0, yeah.
Third world country rough is
100%.
different to like Australia rough, right?
100%. And I was like, oh man, this guy looks tough, bro. Yeah, I just said, man, just man up. As soon as I went out there, I just felt like I belonged, like this is the crowd. I just felt the vibe, and I was like, I fought the guy, and I beat him second round submission, and I was just like, okay. This is where I belong. I've tasted international. I've tasted international level. I want this feeling again. Now that I won on international level, it's like very addictive. Yeah, I got my second fight with one championship, and I was meant to fight one of their up and comers, like a Pakistani guy. He had a great record at the time as well. And then I flew over there. Wool cutting weight. I made the weight, and then they said to me, "Oh, the champion of your weight division couldn't get into the country, so we're bumping you up to main event." I'm like, bumping me? I was like, you're bumping me to main event? This is my second fight in the company. And he goes, yeah, you're fighting, it was Murat Gafarov. This is your second fight. You're fighting Murat Gafarov. This is how much we're going to pay you for the title fight. We'll give you some tips on how to beat him. He's like a grappler guy. He was like, they're just
easier said than done.
Yeah, exactly. But they was like, we'll give you some tips.
That's like saying, I can beat Martin Nguyen. He's a striker.
We'll give you some tips, and then those tips were like selling. I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. But then I fought a guy, a world title fight for the interim title. I fought the featherweight title against a guy that was murdering everyone. A Russian guy that was murdering everyone. And I was like, and just the eagerness in me, I was like, I'll take the fight.
Yeah.
I took the fight and I lost 41 seconds. 41 seconds I lost. I took him down, he reversed it, he trapped my arm, and he choked me.
Yeah, wow.
41 seconds. Never felt so embarrassed in my life. Like, I just trained 8 to 12 weeks for my my second fight debut, and I got thrown into the deep ends 24 hours before the fight.
But that's the worst kind of experience, right? That's
100%.
Go from there, right?
You don't ever hear of it anywhere, but it was just at the time, the champion couldn't get into Indonesia. He was coming from Mongolia.
Yeah.
And then, and so the challenger was already there, and then because the champion wasn't there, whoever won out of these 2 fights obviously wins the interim title, but then has to fight the champion in another country or whatever. And yeah, at the time I was just like, I'll take the fight. And they were like, oh, you're doing us a favor from keeping this card going. And I felt bad for my opponent at the time, Pakistani guy. He works with the company, but he was big at the time. He was like, even when I talk to him to this day, because we're good friends, he goes, oh man, I was gonna do an Imanari roll and leg lock you, and we had everything planned, and I was just gonna work only submissions with you because I knew you were like a good striker, but a grappler, but I was gonna work leg locks on you. And I started laughing. Like to this day, we just laugh about it. But yeah, I felt bad for him. He couldn't fight me at that time, and they threw me straight into the deep end. That kind of lit a fire in me, right?
How so?
So I lost against a guy that was considered the best, right? The best at that time. And I was like, you know what? He's got very strong jiu-jitsu, but I feel that if I can stand and strike with this guy, I can knock him out. I can do more than what I did in that 41 seconds. That was a bit of an embarrassment, but that eagerness kicked in, and I was just like, you know what? Work harder. Work harder to get that fight again. And then I went on a 5 or 6 win streak in the company to get that rematch. And that was when I fought him, because in that time that I had lost to him, there's 4, 5, 6 fights that I've had and I've won. He's basically almost cleaned out 4, 5, 6 guys defending the title. Before getting that title, and he defended it like 3 times. And I was like, it was like killing everyone, and then you're meeting that final boss again that beat you, you know? And yeah, that was when I won my first title, and it's like a bittersweet moment.
How did you feel?
Dude, I felt like I was on top of the world. I was like, I fought a guy that I was a 10-1 underdog. Because I lost 41 seconds to him. 2 years later, I earned my rematch against him, fighting for the world title that he had. All week he was walking around with like, this is an easy match. Just chin up in the air, high-fiving everyone. In my head, I was like, I worked too hard for this. I worked so, like, I just put my head down, jiu-jitsu wise. I took all his eggs away from him, and he was left with nothing.
The Situ-Asian, the rematch he has been itching for, is finally happening after almost 2 years. Nguyen's corner believe that when Gafarov gets hit, he'll become frustrated. Oh, big right hand there from Gafarov, and stuns Nguyen.
Let's see if Martin Nguyen can defend the takedown. Oh, but he muscles his way in. Oh no, Nguyen gives up his back. The body lock is on.
No, the figure 4 body lock. This is the beginning of the end. Usually for opponents of Gafarov. Is it going to be the undoing of Martin Nguyen once again? Gafarov going for the rear naked. The figure 4 body lock is locked on. The body triangle. It'll suck the air out of Nguyen. It'll make it hard to breathe for the Australian.
Oh, what a big victory for Nguyen.
I can't believe he escaped it, Mitch. I've never seen that happen before.
He was right. He said it wouldn't happen, and he defends and gets back up to his feet.
Martin Nguyen, true to his word. He said Gafarov wouldn't be able to tap him out, even if he had his back tonight.
Oh, what does that do to the mindset of Gafarov? Nobody's gotten out of that. Nobody's been able to get away from the possible rear naked choke, and Nguyen takes him down.
A left hand from the Australian. The Aussie threaded it well, picking his shots.
Gafarov pushing forward. That's exactly what he wants. He wants to take this fight to the ground, control and dominate his opponents.
Gafarov does a great job of curling these knees to the orbital. Looks to take the back here of Martin Nguyen. He's going to try and climb him and slap a rear naked choke that way.
His defense in the grappling area has been stellar against that rear naked choke.
Can Nguyen capitalize? Maybe the jab to the overhand right. And there it is! The big gavage! And good night, Irene! Martin Nguyen shocks the world! It's the biggest upset we've seen!
Jab to the overhand right, puts Gafarov away, and we have a new featherweight world champion!
And ultimately I knocked him out, and I won the world title. But yeah, it was just like a bittersweet moment, because I always said to myself that if I was ever going to fight for a world title, I want my parents to be there, my dad to be there, or my mum to be there. But at that time, when I fought for that world title, my dad had passed away. So I was like, it was like bittersweet, emotional, but
And your dad was such a big part of your life.
Oh, 100%, bro, 100%. Even when he passed away, man, it was like, I still remember the phone call before he went into hospital. Like, I was, like, it was just yesterday. Not only my dad, but my mom, they're like the pinnacle of the family, yeah? They're what keeps us all together.
the support system that you
yeah,
were talking about, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And you know, my parents, even when I won the Australian title, my mum was just like, stop, that's it, done. Like, she hates fighting. Even to this day, she hates fighting. And my dad was like, look, you won the title now. You don't need to fight no more. You done what you needed to do. But then I was like, oh, I got the title, but I also got a contract to fight overseas, you know. So that was the conversation that I had with my dad at the time. And then when he was sick, he called me. And I was like, I honestly took it for granted. I was like, oh, just go see a doctor and, you know, see what they prescribe you, what medicine, and you'll get better and all that. My dad was 55 years old.
Yeah.
And at the time when he called me, after that conversation, like an hour later, I get a call from my cousin, and she's like, your dad's going to hospital, he can't breathe. Like, I'm taking him to the hospital. They were down in Melbourne at the time. And she rushed him in. I'm like, my cousin's crying on the phone. I was like, relax, what's going on? Like, you brought him to the hospital, tell me what's happening. She goes, he went in, I don't know what's going on, I don't know what's going on, he can't breathe. And I was just like, in my head, I was like, what the hell is going on? Like,
Yeah.
I called my mum, she's not answering her phone. Tried calling my dad's phone, he's not answering because he's obviously inside. I call my uncle, and I fly down the next day. My uncle goes, man, he's in a coma. He couldn't breathe, and some lymph node or something like that exploded, like not exploded, but like flamed up and blocked his airways. He couldn't breathe at all, so they put him in an induced coma, and yeah, just never woke up from that.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy, man.
And how I guess, you know, what was, like, how long was that before your title fight?
This is bad. I don't remember. He died in 2000 and I think it was 13 or 14.
Yeah.
14 or something like that. But then, yeah, I fought for the title in 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in between that time.
it
it
would have
was just
definitely.
like, it was chaotic, bro. Very
Yeah.
chaotic. I was just like, should I stop? Because that's what he wanted me to do. Or if I stop, you know, that's an easy way.
Yeah.
It's an easy way. It's just like saying, like, you're in a relationship and you have a bad day. It's easy to quit. It's easy to say, I don't want to be with you no more. It's just easy like that, bro. And I don't know, bro. For me, quitting just like that, it just wasn't in my heart, bro. You know, because he was the sole purpose of me working hard to where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it still is to this day. I'm still not where I want to be, and I'm just still fighting for that, for those moments. So yeah.
I guess for you, right? Like, when did you start taking this full time? Like, quit the apprenticeship. Was it during those moments that you're like, okay, well, now that I've got the 1FC, I'm just gonna go, like,
Yeah, so I won the first. I was still working up until that world title fight.
Yeah, wow.
And then at the time I got an opportunity once in a lifetime to fight for another title in a different division. And it was a division above, which is my opponent at the time. He had at least 7 kilos on me.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I'll take the opportunity. You're not going to say no to opportunity. And through taking that opportunity, I was still working. And even the CEO at the time, when he called me, he goes, oh, sorry, I'm still at work. Can I call you back? And he goes, you're at work? I'm like, yeah, I work full time. And he was even surprised. He was like, how do you work full time and win a second world title?
Because most athletes have to dedicate their whole life.
A whole life,
right?
100%.
So you already handicapped for like 8 hours a day.
100%.
Yeah.
No, it was 10 hours a day actually.
Yeah.
6 days a week.
Yeah.
So I was like, I remember my words. I'm like, can I call you back? I'm still at work at the moment because he just called me randomly. And he said to me, wait, you working? I was like, yeah, I work 6 days a week. I'll call you back.
We don't pay you enough.
I'm like, that's how he kind of took it, bro. And he was like, you know what? This is X amount and there, and then ends up being like I have my I came back to fight for the 3rd world title in another weight division below. So I fought initially to 70 kilos, then I went up to 77, and I was going down to 66. So this is a third weight title that I was fighting for, and it would have been the first in the world to ever get it if I had succeeded.
How did you feel in the second title? Like,
when I won the second title, I was a 10-1 underdog, fighting in front of 21,000 Filipinos in that guy's home territory. The Filipino champion. He had just beaten like a world-class Japanese fighter, Shinya Aoki, and he was defending his title. He's my friend. He was my friend at the time too. And I had messaged him when they offered me the fight. I go, look, I don't want to take this fight.
I remember this story.
You're my fight. You're my friend, you know. I don't want to take this fight. And he goes, oh, we are martial artists, and we have to do what we have to do at the end of the day. So I took that kind of like disrespectful, and I was like, you know what? If you want to fight me, I'll fight you. It was like that, you know. If it's a dog-eat-dog world, that's how it has to be. fought him. I knocked him out, shocked the world, got the second world title in a different division. And straight away, they gave me the opportunity to fight for the third world title, which is against another dangerous Brazilian guy. But yeah.
Yeah, wow. So 2 world
And then
titles.
from that day of winning that second world title, maybe like 2 weeks later, because I went to work the week that I flew back, I went straight back to work. That's when I was like, you know what, I have to do this full time.
Yeah.
I have to put all my time and effort into it to see where I go. Like, I already got this far working full time.
Yeah, 2 world
So
two
now
world
I
titles.
want to see where I can go not working full time and just putting full time effort and full time concentration and mindset and everything into the sport.
Yeah, wow. But that's crazy. So two world titles. After that, you know, you felt like how could you feel after the second one, right? Like was it kind of like, oh crap, like I've done this the second time, like, or how did you feel like?
Dude, I felt like I was the Conor McGregor of Asia. That's how it was. I won a different title. He won 2 titles. I won 2 titles. I was a Conor McGregor, but without the paycheck. That was it, basically. And when I fought for the third world title, I lost a split decision. And then, just defended my title 3 more times and eventually lost it during COVID time.
I don't know. I'm just like I'm sweating like listening to this. It's so engrossing. I'm just like this
it's definitely
story is.
It's definitely a crazy story, but you know, just in life in general, bro. If you don't work hard for what you want, and you're just doing it to show people that you're just doing it, you're doing it for the wrong purpose.
Yeah.
If you don't work hard for what you want and try to succeed in your own field, then you're not doing it right, you know?
I find it interesting though that you say that, because a lot of young cats that I talk to, I feel like they don't even know what they want, right? Like I think, you know, for you, I felt like you kind of kept wanting to go to the next level, kept wanting to kind of beat yourself, but you know, how do you even find what you want in the first place, right? Is it like, how did you figure that out?
How I figured it out was, this is the main thing. I always try to compare myself to what I was when I first started. Yeah, so when I first started, I was like the most complete unco striker. Jiu-jitsu, I was so uncoordinated, and I was just solely short, like just focusing on athleticism.
Yeah.
That's all I was. It was like, I'm not good at getting out here, I'll just explode and I'll push them off. And like, it was just, I always compare myself, like, be grateful because remember what you were like when you first started. My wife and I, mainly, we compare it to the past. We used to, as I said, working as an apprentice, we used to live week to week, dude, and living week to week was the worst hell in my life. And I understand that people going through it now, and I'm still grateful that I'm not going through that stage. There's a lot of people going through it now, and you know, just know that you're gonna overcome that. But for us at the time, living week to week, every dollar counted. It even came to a point where I had a company car and our home car was out of fuel, and my wife had to wait for me to come home from work to use the company car to go to shops to get groceries.
No, I get it. Like Sandy and I went through the same thing, right? When we first started this business, we rented out like a commercial space to kind of store our sneakers. She was working weekends so to cover it, and then I was kind of teaching at a uni. And that was, you know, literally like a day a week maybe, right? But then we had to grow PUSHAS, and we're working week to week. You know, rent every week was due. You know, there were times where I'm like, man, it'd be great to get like a milk tea or something, because I love, you know, like cocoa milk tea or like gong cha or something, right? Back then it was like $6.50, and just kind of like, oh shit, if I buy $6.50, maybe I can't buy a pad thai or something, an $8 pad thai for dinner, right? And I think
I could feed the both of you guys.
Exactly,
you know?
exactly. So those moments, it kind of brings back, and I think similar to you, like I feel like I always compare it to my parents. I'm like, they had it worse, so I can't complain.
100%.
I feel like I have this kind of guilt when I'm complaining, even though, you know, I look back, I'm like, I have trauma. Like, I'm like, that was a tough time, right? And I'm sure you look back to it, you're like, that was hard. But I still look at that and I'm like, I can't complain. Because if I complain, it's disrespectful to my parents who have to go through it work.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel the same way.
So I know that you represent Australia and Vietnam.
Yeah.
What was the decision behind that? Right? Like that, you know, many people would be like, well, I'm either going to represent one or the other.
Yeah.
Right? What was the decision behind you representing both, right? That's pretty unusual.
Yeah, 100%. I won't go too much into detail, but I'm proud of my heritage.
Yeah.
I'm proud of where my parents came from. Regardless of whatever happened in the past, I'll always be proud.
Yeah.
And obviously I was born and I grew up in Australia, and being Australian means a lot to me, but also having Vietnamese heritage means so much to me as well, because that's where my parents.
That's your roots, right?
Yeah, it's
that's
my
what
roots, yeah. So when they gave me the option of who are you representing, and you're going to be Australian because you're born in Australia, I go no, I choose to represent Vietnam and Australia, even though to the Vietnamese people I'm known as like a Viet Kieu, which is like a overseas,
foreigner.
Foreigner, yeah. But when I represent them on a world stage and say I win, or even when I lose, I always still get the same support from those guys and from the Australians. So regardless, it's not for them. I'm doing it for me and my family.
So you have a lot of success under your belt now, pardon the pun, but what advice would you have for people who are starting out in their careers or starting out in their journeys, to if they look up to you and obviously they want to be like, whether it's in MMA or elsewhere, what advice do you have? And you have a son yourself, right? So what advice would you regularly give him?
I do get asked this question a lot, and I always get put on the spot, and it's always like a huge buckle, but I just keep it simple, man. I just say it as it is. There's going to be a lot more bad days than good out there. Put your head down, put the work in, F the noise, F the negative shit around you. Know how to deal with the negative stuff, and kind of use that to your advantage. Just work hard, man. Like success doesn't grow overnight. That's how I live my life, man. Just work hard and let your work do the talking for you.
That's great advice. Yeah. Now to change gears a bit, but what do you favour sneakers?
I feel that the sneakers make the outfit.
Yep.
So yeah, you can wear a lot of nice fancy clothes, but if you got on some, not to say that they're bad shoes, but if you got something nice on and you got like some volleys, Dunlop volleys on, like come on, dude, like you just made an expensive outfit look like it was from Big W, like $30 volleys. Yeah, for me, my favorite would be either Yeezys, Dunks, or Jordan Lows.
Yeah, you suit the Jordan Lows. I don't know why, but when I think of Jordan Lows, I'm like, fuck, that's a Martin shoe.
I don't suit Jordan highs because I'm so short, and it's just the highs that come up like halfway through my legs because I'm so short. But yeah, I feel that Jordan Lows, low Dunks, or Yeezys.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming onto the show. I know your time is valuable, and I'm sure everyone would have enjoyed what Martin spoke about. Like that was in line. Like I got chills.
I mean, even if they relate to it, or even if they're not relating to it, it's just some facts in there.
Yeah, no, it's good. And where can people find you if they want to keep following your journey?
All of my socials, from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter, it's Martin Nguyen MMA. Just keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. And that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff, bell notification, all that stuff. But follow Martin, man. Like I think every time I have a conversation with him, I'm always learning. I'm always, it G's me up. Like it gets me G'd up to be like, damn, man, I'm not doing enough. Like I gotta keep going. Like I remember.
Might come in and start fighting soon too.
Man, I'll get beat. Just a great human being. He's about family, about working hard, about ambition, and I think you can't really get a better role model than Martin. So thanks for coming in, bro. Like honestly, like it's always a pleasure.
Appreciate you.
But yeah, see you next time.
That was so crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like it was just like banger after banger. I was like edge of my seat. Oh, he's telling me the story. Like, oh, the first fight.
That's how it is, man. Like, honestly, I just said facts. There's no lie, man.
When I'm standing, homie, stab me in the back, and that can never be forgiven. And my palms been itching, man. I like your superstition. You can't have my phone number unless we running up the digits. Let me meditate. I just need a couple minutes. Tryna low bump me, my cojones to the big ass.